Hi, welcome to Allergy Dragon's Lair podcast. My name is Martha Morgan. I happen to be a food allergy chef that has celiac disease and a couple of food allergies. My biggest claim to fame is raising a child with over 30 food allergies and celiac disease as well. Today, I'm super excited, and I know I say that every time I have somebody on, but I really, really am. So we're going to jump into this episode really quickly, but first, disclaimer. The views expressed here on our show are the personal opinions and life experiences of ours and our guests. We are not healthcare providers or doctors. Please seek advice from your healthcare professional for any diagnosis or changes to your healthcare plan. Okay, now that we got all that out of the way. Okay, so onto my guest. My guest I actually met kind of virtually in 2020, almost, I think everybody did. We just really kind of were reaching around the world. I didn't even know Creative Natures existed, but Julianne Ponan, see, I'm messing up your name already. Ponan? Am I saying Ponan? I want to say it wrong. Okay. Julianne Ponan, who I can't say their name to save my life today, so forgive me for that. It happens to be in the UK and is incredibly sweet, and we have tried to kind of organize this a couple times, and that's okay. We're allowed to kind of reschedule. So it happens to be 6 a.m. here. I think it's about 11 a.m. your time, if I'm right. And I'm going to have Julianne kind of introduce herself, explain why she, created this company and what she does, which is honestly amazing.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm super excited as well, and I can't believe how long it's taken to get in the diary, so thank you for bearing with me. Yeah, I am Julianne Ponan, and I suffer severely from anaphylaxis. So I'm allergic to peanuts, tree nuts, sesame, chickpeas, lentils, poppy seeds, a lot of medication, a whole host of things, but I think I have under 30 allergies. I don't have as many as that, but I know how difficult it can be growing up, and especially learning about new ones suddenly that I get, which is quite scary. And it drove me to create food brand, and that food brand is called Creative Nature. And what I wanted to do was enable more people to sit around the same table. I didn't want anyone to have to miss out. So all our products are always top 14 allergen free, which is in the UK, that is the top 14 most common allergens. And I think in the US, it's top 8 or top 9 now that you've added sesame as well, which is great.
It is great. Yeah. And it's hard to get used to saying top 9. I would like it to be top 14. I think that's even better. Personally. And thank you so much, like I said, again, for coming on the show, because I think you're awesome, and more people should definitely know about you over here in the States. I actually have not been able to try any of your products yet, because there's only I think one that I can actually try, and that was one of the things, the carrot cake mix.
Okay.
But we have so many food allergies here. I'm allergic to chocolate, so the candies you make look amazing, and different products that you have, but you do really help so many people over there. And then also, I think you can get your products on Amazon, if I'm right, here in the UK,
Yes.
in America. Okay, because I was looking into it, because I was I really want to try, and I was because I was so excited, because you just kind of became available over here. Is it in the past year or the year before?
Just in the past year, yes. And we're trying to get out to more stores at the moment, but haven't had that breakthrough yet. But hopefully in the next sort of 18 months we will do.
Yeah. And 30 allergies are a lot, but any allergies, I always say one allergy is too many. And then when you start hitting 3 or more, it becomes where people forget that you have food allergies, and they remember you have food allergies, just don't remember which ones you have. I call it the rule of 3. When you start hitting over 3, it's just mind boggling, because you've had your allergens since you grew up with them as a child, correct?
Yes. Yeah. My first reaction was when I was 2, but I don't remember it. I was in nursery, so they rushed me to hospital, and my parents said that's when they started all the proper allergy tests and the skin prick tests, all of that, to understand the severity, and also lots of other things that I was allergic to that I hadn't tried yet.
So growing up with food allergies, because it's different for me, I was late in life finding out about allergies, and I've had to raise somebody with food allergies. And I always like to get the perspective. In what ways do you think it made growing up better? And in what ways do you think it made it harder?
It's a really interesting question, because I always wonder if I had got it later, would it be worse? And I think it was actually easier growing up with it, because I learned to, I guess, deal with it and prepare for it, and I had a longer time to understand it. I think there were certain elements that were harder because allergies weren't as known back then. as they are now. So they're more talked about in schools, at university, whereas I found that my school, well, I went to a few schools, but they really didn't understand it. And they had something called the allergy table at the time. And I was the only child sitting at this allergy table. And I couldn't really understand why I needed to be separated from other children. And it just ended up me wanting to change schools a lot of time. And I did change schools a lot. So I'd say that was quite difficult. But then there were other things that I think I wouldn't have created creative nature if I didn't have the allergies. So from that passion and that purpose, created something that was meaningful and something that will hopefully like be my legacy in a way. So I think there are things that happen to you in life that put you along a path. So I believe that the allergies made me stronger in a way. And it's an interesting talking point as well for people. But like, as you said, once you get past that 3, they kind of forget that you have so many allergies. It's always like, I always get known as, you've got a nut allergy. It's like, yes, I've got an allergy, but I've also got a whole host of other allergies as well. And that tends to be what happens even when I eat out at a restaurant. They won't have a nut allergy menu or anything. They will just give you like the vegan menu, and they'll just go, this is absolutely fine, like you'll be fine, I'm sure you'll be able to find something. And usually everything that's vegan has chickpeas, lentils, peanuts or tree nuts. So usually that is the menu I definitely can't have.
Yeah, I get that too sometimes if I go someplace and I'm like, I need a gluten-free menu. And then that's before we even get to the allergens. And sometimes they'll give me the vegan menu that has a lot of wheat in it. And I'll be like, yeah, okay, so wheat is a plant, correct, but as gluten. So I understand that. I believe that to a certain degree that I think it's easier to grow up with an ailment or this, disability, however you want to look at it. Because I also have rheumatoid arthritis, and I've had it since I was 4 years old. And then being a late in life person having food allergies and being diagnosed with celiac disease, for me, it was definitely harder to adjust because I think with the RA, I've always felt that way. I've always had pain. I've always struggled with movement. And so it's my norm. It's what I know. And you don't know any other way to be. I think there's something to be said for when you're being tested as you grow up like that, to almost make it like when some other things come your way, they're not quite as traumatic for you, because I think you adjust quicker. Not to say that they're not traumatic or to underplay it. I just think that we have a tendency to kind of look at life in a little bit more, hopefully positive light at the end of the day, I
completely agree. I think that when you're growing up, you even like using an auto injector, if you've used it as a child, you're not as scared to use it as an adult. However, when it's something brand new and it's that unknown that you're scared of. And I remember as a child being I've got a big phobia of needles, so it was a big thing for me. And even till today, I'm scared of needles. But at the same time, I learned to carry an EpiPen. I learned it was important to administer an EpiPen, and if I didn't have it from a young age, I don't think I would have sense and that norm, that comfort, making me feel comfortable.
Yeah, I agree with that. So moving on with labeling, we talked about it briefly before we actually started recording. How do you feel about labeling laws in the UK as someone that consumes products, but also somebody that actually, has a business and has to conform to labeling?
I think there's been huge steps in the right direction in terms of Natasha's law. That's been fantastic, in that you have to declare all the top 14 allergens on pack for pre-packaged food at Costa, Starbucks, that sort of thing. However, what this does open up is just everyone sticking may contain on, and that has just increased tenfold since this law. Then also on top of that, restaurants, they've become more strict. They will say, if you have an allergy, please tell a member of staff before you order. You do that, and as soon as you do that, they ask you to sign a waiver, or they say, unfortunately, no, there's no guarantee. And some of them won't even explain what their process is, which I think is a big problem in the UK. There's recently been some data that's been released in one of the newspapers that 1 in 3 labels are wrong, which is huge. And 90% of the food that they tested that had a vegan claim on the front of pack actually contained dairy, which is awful. That is something that really needs to be sorted out. I do think there's also another problem of if you're not claiming free from, and you just do, say, a normal biscuit, but you don't have to put on the may contain peanuts, tree nuts, even though it could, which I think is again, it's quite a worry for people like myself who go, oh my gosh, this is suitable for me. It doesn't have any may contains, but it doesn't have a free from claim on the front. Oh, actually, I can't have that. And I did have an allergy actually to recently, I guess not about a year and a half ago, to an ice cream that I'd eaten for 20 years of my life. And they hadn't changed anything in terms of the recipe, but what they had done is change factory, and it now had a may contain. I didn't realise how severe that was, and I didn't check the label because I'd eaten it for so many years. So I think it's just being vigilant about labels. And as you know, shopping always takes us around 30 to 40% longer than someone without allergies. So a shop for a normal person might take 30 minutes, but for me, actually, it takes an hour to an hour and a half, which I'm sure you probably find the same. And buying online is probably your worst nightmare as well, because they can say one thing online, and then when the product turns up, actually it contains all the things that you can't have.
But yeah, exactly. And the parallel to me, because like we were speaking before, is in America here, we don't have a perfect labeling law system either. And it's amazing to hear from people from other countries and the issues that are kind of universal. And this is a universal problem. And, it makes traveling hard for us. It makes just day-to-day life hard for us. And then I know with your labeling, because I've read them online, and I know we've spoke about this before, you get very specific, and I love that about you, because ingredients have ingredients. You get specific. You tell them what spices, everything, and I love that about your labeling. And I feel like more people should be held to that standard.
I think definitely it's about transparency as well, and we batch test. So we test the machinery for the top 14 allergens with swabs before the product even goes down the line, even though we don't have any peanuts or tree nuts or sesame used, etc. We just want to make that doubly sure. So then that is then released. We put the product down the line, and we also test the beginning, the middle, and the end samples all together as a composite, and send it to an independent lab and test for the allergens again, because we want to ensure the customer has that safety. And then in terms of spices, I think it's really important to declare. So in our carrot cake, we use a spice blend, and lots of people just don't bother breaking down the spices at all. And I do think that is quite a problem. You don't have to put the percentage because you don't want someone to know your secret recipe, but what you do need to do is tell people what's in the product. And I find so much on airlines in particular, they just do not even, they'll give you like a cake and it won't have any ingredients on, like nothing. And I think that's a big issue for people like you and me, but also I think the general public should want to know what's in their food. Like, shouldn't they want to know that the product is free from GMO or doesn't have any weird preservatives in or things that they can't say? And at the same time, the allergens are, again, such an important part. They might, even if they're not allergic, they might be avoiding a certain product. They might have to avoid, I don't know, chickpeas or lentils or legumes, but they won't know this unless the label is there. And asking somebody on board flight or at a restaurant, it is really hard because the staff turnaround is very high, and the training can't be done all the time. So the best way forward is to have the correct labels on pack.
And especially if you happen to be out of the top 9 here in the US or out of the top 14 in the UK, I mean, chocolate is not one that's generally found. Obviously, I can usually tell if it's got chocolate in it, but it's harder if it has cinnamon or ginger or garlic. And, they love to say spices. No, I want to know everything.
And you deserve to know everything because you need to know what you're putting into your body. And I think everyone has the right to that as well.
Mm-hmm. And people will ask me, they're like, what's the biggest thing, or how does it feel to have allergies? And I'm like, the number one thing I tell them is to read the packaging, or they'll be like, I don't like tofu, or I don't like soy, or I don't eat that ever. And I'm like, do you read your packaging? It's almost in everything.
Everything.
Soy.
They say they don't eat it, but they do. That's the thing.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm like, not reading those package labels, need to flip that over. Then you'll kind of understand. But yeah, I think it's very important to know in general what you're putting in your body.
Well, with like cosmetics too. So if I went to, for example, a hotel and I used their hand soap in the toilets, and suddenly started coming up with a huge rash, and figured out that actually it was almond oil. So it's just, you never know when something is going to be there. And then also the fact that perfumes and some cosmetics don't even put the label on, or they put it in Latin, so you don't even understand it unless you carry around something that says all the different words in there.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. We have the same issue here, because it's voluntary for them to label anything with, cosmetics and that, and then cleaning supplies, laundry detergent, all of that is voluntary, and it's crazy because you could be using stuff with peanuts or cleaning products that, unless it says it right on the label, like you said, it's an issue. I had hand cream that I had been using for years, ended up breaking me out because I didn't realize they put barley oil in it, and or they changed it. And it was something they didn't have to put on the packaging, but they had changed it, and they happened to have it on the website. Because I'm like, I've used this for 5 years. Why am I having this, reaction on my hands? And so, yeah, I've been there, and you get tired of having to carry we already have to carry some food with us. Now we have to carry, everything else. And so you have added back problems because you're carrying like a suitcase with you everywhere you go. But
everyone asks, why do I carry such a big bag with me?
Yeah, exactly. It's and then we have our little things on there for our EpiPens, and at least I do. I have like a little pull string type of thing where it says this is where my EpiPen is in my bag.
Yes, I have like a EpiPen bag, so then and it has like, it says Julianne's EpiPens written all across. But as well, for someone to find it too, just in case, like what happens if I was unconscious, I want someone to be able to find it really quickly rather than rummaging through everything else of my like wipes and my Piriton and my inhalers and all of that stuff.
All of that stuff. Yeah, exactly. We have to be prepared for it, because it can happen anytime, anywhere, and it happens suddenly most of the time. Sometimes we get a heads up and it doesn't overtake us quite as quickly, but it's scary because you never know when that's going to be. I don't know, being prepared helps me be calm.
It gives you that sense of control of, okay, I am in control of this. I may not be in control of everyone else and what they're doing, but I know I have all my medication. I know where I need to be, like what could happen. We had it, so I did scuba diving, like for my PADI certification, and it was a big thing because they said, oh, I don't know if you'll be able to do it because obviously you've got allergies, and the mouthpiece, I had to like get a separate mouthpiece and everything to be able to do it, just to make sure. And they carried my EpiPens down with me, so they did the pull first, and then I was only allowed to go to a certain depth because of my allergies as well, which was quite interesting, because obviously you need to be able to get to the surface quite quickly as well. So, but it's just, I never thought, I always say like your allergies don't have to limit you, and I really believe that, but there are things that we do have to like make like special precaution, like take preparation for, and I'm all about like, how can we do that? Like, what else can be done to make other people's lives just a little bit easier? Like yourself, like what would make your life easier when traveling around the States, when going to certain activities, and how can it become more inclusive as well?
Exactly. And also not feeling like you're burdening everybody. And I think that comes with us advocating. Like for me, being a later in life person having food allergies, we were just talking about this. We've started a inclusive allergy and autoimmune disease meetup here locally here in Louisville, Kentucky.
That's really cool. Maybe if I'm ever in the area, I could.
Exactly. If you're ever stateside and in the Louisville area, yes, you'll have to come. And it was very cool to be sitting around and talking to people dealing with the same things you were dealing with, face to face, not so much online. I mean, online has its purposes, and we need that, but being able to come face to face is huge, and being able to share those things. And we were talking about advocating, and some people have had food allergies all their life. Some of us are later in life. I was 27 when I got first diagnosed, found out I had food allergies. So for me, I had no problems teaching my child how to advocate, and I had no trouble advocating for them. But it's been harder for me to advocate for myself. So that dynamic is very much there. It's really interesting for me. And we were talking about it because you don't want to be the person that's putting all the pressure on everybody to make these exceptions, but you want to be included. So it's that fine line, I think, where we feel like I will say, I feel like sometimes I'm putting myself upon somebody or making them go an extra step, when really it's not. It's just, having to change that way of thinking for yourself, in my opinion.
Definitely, and I think we've all been there where you're like, oh, do I want to tell them about my allergies? I don't want to put that pressure on them. But I think the more we speak to each other and the more the allergy community actually talk about it, and face-to-face really does help with this, because then you feel like you're not alone, and actually by asking, you're helping the person who's going to visit that place after you to have a more inclusive experience. And that's how I think of it now. It's not just about me, but it's also a step in the right direction. I hate the confrontation. I kind of step back when there's an issue, like at a restaurant or something. I'll just go, oh, it's okay. I'd rather just not eat or not take that risk. But what I do like to do is give them at least some feedback on how they can potentially become more inclusive. It's not going to change overnight, but even if they make small tweaks, I think as a human, you would just appreciate that.
I agree with you. And obviously we follow each other. Watched what Creative Nature is doing with the airline stands and some of the videos that you all have been putting out, which are amazing. Please go check those out if you're listening. And you remind me of, No Nut Traveler and that kind of thing.
Oh, Liam.
Liam. Yeah, you really, awesome people. So I love the stance that you're taking with that, especially as a company, in my opinion, that's brave, because so many people wouldn't do that because they would be worried about, in some ways, hurting people's feelings. But I think the stance you all are taking on it is very radical. And like somebody was like, well, that's shocking. And I'm like, sometimes you have to bring the shock value to really make somebody listen. When I used to train my employees, and I still do say this, and that is that everybody has to face death a couple times a day when you're in your car traveling, but we have to do it at least 3 more times a day: breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then people are like, what? Like, that's insane, but it's the truth. So do you mind kind of going into that?
Definitely. So it's actually the airline campaign I was really nervous about. I have to be completely honest. And it is a hard-hitting campaign. For those of you who haven't seen it, one of the statements is, would you take a weapon on board a plane? And the immediate answer is no. You would never take a knife, a gun, that type of thing on board a flight. Now, for some people like me, so if someone opens nuts on board a flight, that's exactly what it feels like. It is, I could potentially go into anaphylactic shock, not have the correct medical attention, and die, which is as hard-hitting as that is, it's the truth. We did take a stand to focus on one allergen, which was nuts, because we really wanted that to hit home. But it wasn't the fact that nuts are the most important allergy. It was more trying to get an average consumer, an average passenger, to understand, gosh, this is the reality for someone with allergies. And then that opens up the conversation to dairy and gluten and soya, and it just gets them to think before they snack. And that's all I wanted to do, and all we wanted to do as a company was get more people to understand, when they are sitting next to someone, would it cost them anything just to say, oh, do you have any allergies? Or if they have something in their bag, and if someone next to them goes, oh, I'm really sorry, I have a dairy allergy, just not eat it. It's not going to cost them a lot. So I think that was the standpoint. And of course we wanted airlines to understand that they also play a part in it, but actually it starts from the passenger first. If we can get the passenger to understand, they will push the airlines to want to become more inclusive. And I'm proud to say we fly our product across all Virgin Atlantic, across all their planes, which is really exciting. But that's just the start. Like there's Delta and United and BA, and there's so many other flights that go out every single day. Just think of it as a person who gets on a flight who has allergies. Like when they get on that flight, they really don't know if they're going to get off that flight because they're in a metal box. And I know I've had some backlash in terms of people are like, well, then you shouldn't fly. Well, does that, so because I have allergies and because everyone else that has allergies, does that mean they shouldn't have the right to go on holiday or the right to experience new cultures, new things, or even see family? Like what if my family member, some of my family are from Kenya, Guyana, what if I need to go over and see them? Does that mean I shouldn't? I think these are the questions we need to be asking. And as more people started to come on board and question it, I think they slowly started to understand. I went to an event recently and there were people coming up and saying, oh my gosh, I really didn't know what it was like to get on board a flight with an allergy, but now I feel like I get it just a little bit more. And that's all I wanted to do.
Exactly. No, and you just put it perfectly. I totally got it. And I can see where some people would not have gotten it, and I love what you're doing. Thank you very much for doing that.
But I want to make it really clear that we care about all allergens. It's just we're focusing on one to get that message through. And I hope other people in the allergy community will be as receptive as you are. And it's about working together to build a better future, rather than trying to overload them with information and they just can't take it in. They don't understand it.
Exactly. And I hope they do too, because I agree with it. Like the shock value, sometimes you have to be extreme for people to understand. And that being said as well, when you're talking about options for people, so let's say I'm a diabetic. I have several clients because I do specialty diet and food allergies. And a lot of times they go hand in hand, and diabetes is an autoimmune disease as well. And so they do usually have to have a certain amount of protein. A lot of times they're going to carry nuts. A lot of times they're going to carry things that have got allergens in them. So then it's like, what other options do we have for people that are on the low glycemic index? They need to keep their protein level up and keep their sugars stable. They have a right to fly too. Obviously, that's not what you're saying. It's just saying other options. What other options can they carry with them that wouldn't necessarily be an allergen to the person beside them? Maybe they need to carry more than one thing. Nuts are not always the only source of protein. We all have a right to eat safely. And it's just having different options and just being kind to each other is really what you're saying.
Hopefully people will take it that way.
I think they will, especially hopefully if they listen to this interview and they can really understand what you're saying, if they're taking it the wrong way. And if they are taking it the wrong way, maybe it's just, sometimes they just have to, meet that one person that is going to change their mind. So maybe you're not that person, but maybe they'll be bringing it up to somebody else. You're getting people to talk. And that's the biggest thing.
Getting them to talk and being at their front of their mind when they're boarding a flight is what's important. I think we've done that, and I think it's going to keep going, and we're slowly going to delve into it deeper and deeper, and with more people being interviewed. And I found it really interesting to see what the public had to say as well. Like from the BuzzFeed videos, it was really interesting to hear them that no, of course we wouldn't. We would never want to cause someone any harm. They say that, but then when they go on flight, they can do a different thing. So it's about getting them to keep that education when they're going on board.
I think it's awesome. We're going to be wrapping up here. So I always, obviously, again, thank you very much for taking the time to do this. I just always ask everybody, anything you want to say right now, you have the floor. And I will not cut it or any way, shape, or form.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed what I've had to say. And please do check out our product, because we have a range of baking mixes. We have lovely chocolatey things. Not that you can have them, but hopefully other people can. And we also have our range of superfoods as well that you can add to like porridges, smoothies, and if you want to cook yourself. So please do check us out on our website, creativenaturesuperfoods.com.
Awesome again. Thank you so much for taking the time. Hopefully we'll have you back again. Go ahead and make sure to check out Julianne and Creative Natures and all the amazing things they're doing for education. Their products, you can order them at Amazon here in the United States. I've heard they're called Nullable. I can't say it now.
Magibles now. We've changed the name to Magibles so that people can say it.
Thank you. You were thinking of me and didn't even know it. I cannot eat those, but I have heard nothing but good things about them. So definitely check things out. Links and everything will be down below. Subscribe, share, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.